Hello and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by these guests will help our community. Today we have such guest, Tony Santino. Tony is the Senior Councilman for Town of Hempstead Council, and also he is assistant to the Chairman of Republican Party, Joe Mandelo. Let's meet Tony. Tony, welcome to the show, sir.
Raj, good to be here.
Thank you so much for coming,
Pleasure.
taking time this morning.
My pleasure.
3rd of July, and tomorrow we are at Independence Day. We have
That's
Independence Day, and so Tony, we always normally begin with the background. Like, you have been in politics for a long time.
Yep.
You have risen, from at the age of 22 you started.
Yep.
So I wanted to know a little bit about you first, for the viewer's sake.
Okay. We'll start with now, and then we'll go back a little bit. Right now, I am councilman of the Town of Hempstead. I'm a senior councilman. I've been a member of the Hempstead Town Board for the past 21 years.
Wow.
Which actually makes me the longest serving member of the town board in the history of the township, which is kind of exciting. That just kind of happened just a couple of months ago. Prior to that, I served in elective office. I was a trustee in the village of East Rockaway and the deputy mayor there, and that was back in the 1980s. I actually started that position when I was 22 years old. And at that time, I was the youngest elected village trustee in the state of New York.
Wow.
So I did that for 8 years. 2 of those 8 years I was deputy mayor, as I said, and then I went on to serve on the Hempstead Town Board. So those are the only 2 elected positions I've had. There've been other jobs. I've been the director of communications for the Town of Hempstead, which is something I did for 6.5 years. From 1987 to 1993, and then from there I went right on the town board. And then I'm also executive assistant to the chairman of the Nassau County Republican Party. And I've had that position also for over 20 years now.
Wow.
So all of that, when you put all of that together, it puts me at the center of a lot of things in government and politics in Nassau County, and it's been fun and it's interesting, and every day is an adventure, and every day we try to do some good on behalf of the county and the town of Hempstead and the people we serve.
That's a great thing. That's what people want, actually, and people do like you. I've been hearing a lot about you. Now tell me something. Who was your mentor? I mean, you must have learned from somebody, right? Somebody must have. How did you think about getting into politics?
Well, I have 2 mentors. Originally, when I was a very young man, the local congressman in where I live in East Rockaway, where I still live and I own a home. I grew up in East Rockaway, and the local congressman was a fellow by the name of Norman Lent. And he lived in East Rockaway, so he was, as I said, the local guy, but he was also like my neighbor. I mean, not next door neighbor, but he was from the same town, and everybody knew him. And I just one day with a friend of mine went and volunteered in one of his re-election campaigns. That's back in 1976. Which, if you do the math, I was 15 years old, and we rode bicycles over to where his campaign headquarters was. And we just started stuffing envelopes and doing the basics. I got promoted from stuffing envelopes to he used to like to go around in campaign and go to shopping centers with a big van with a big loudspeaker that would have, John Philip Sousa marches playing and all music, and he'd go out and he'd hand out literature, and he'd pass out balloons, strings to little kids who were shopping with their parents, and I actually developed a pretty good talent for blowing up balloons with the helium tank, and I could do it very, very quickly, and it's like riding a bicycle. I could still do it to this day. Every now and then when I come across somebody who's blowing up balloons at something with a helium tank, I see if I could still do it, and I can do it, and it's I just learned how to do it very, very fast. So that then became my job, and I would when he would go to a shopping center, I would be in the back of the truck blowing up these balloons as fast as I could, because once someone starts handing out balloons, kids come from all over. Which he was a very smart politician, that because the kids then would bring their parents over, and it was a very, very smart way to do things. And so I certainly worked my way up from the bottom. So I got involved with Congressman Lent, and ultimately when I was going to college, went to work for him, really work for him with a real job. I worked for him both in Washington and on Long Island. And then when I graduated from college, I became his district office manager. So I became his top employee in the district, and I did that for a few years, and then another opportunity opened up in Nassau County, and then ultimately I went to work for when Joe Mondello, who is the county Republican chairman still to this day, when he first became presiding supervisor of Hempstead. That was 1987. I went to work for him, and I've been with him in one capacity or another ever since. So it's 27, 28, going on 28 years. So I would identify him as my second mentor, who really, Norman Lent gave him my start. I learned a great deal from him, but my career really blossomed under Chairman Mondello, and my association with him, again, for 27, 28 years has been a wonderful one, and he's taught me a great deal, and he's really set a standard that I try to live up to in terms of being a public servant and a political leader.
Very, very good, very good. So you started just for fun, I guess.
Yeah, I always
Right,
liked. I always liked politics. And
You always liked politics.
Politics was always something I was very interested in. Actually, I actually have a conscious memory of watching the 1964 Republican National Convention on TV with my father. And then again, if you do that math, I was 3 years old at the time. But I do remember it. It was Goldwater and Rockefeller at the Cow Palace in San Francisco. And I was just fascinated by politics at a really very, very young age. I mean, I liked all the other things that kids like, baseball, football, and all of that. But when all of my friends wanted to be Mickey Mantle or Tom Seaver, I wanted to be, I wanted to be a politician. That's what I thought was it was just a very exciting, very exciting career, and a very interesting career. And I'm very fortunate in that, most people who want to grow up being Mickey Mantle or Tom Seaver never get to be that, but I actually got to be what I wanted to be. So I'm very happy about that.
Good, very good, very good. Now, this is your 7th term, right? As a councilman.
6. I've been elected. Actually, that is an interesting. So the numbers are interesting. This is my 6th term I'm in now, but I've been elected 7 times.
You've been elected 7 times.
Because in the middle of one of the terms, the town, based on a court decision, had to switch from an at-large system where the council members ran throughout the entire township to a system where they would run in individual districts. So in the year 2000, when I was in the middle of, I guess that would have been my second term. I was in the middle of when I was in the middle of my 2nd term, and still had a year left on it, I had to run again, switching from an at-large system to a district system. So I won that race, and then I had to run the year after it in 2001 for now a full 4-year term. So that's why it's 6 terms with 7 elections.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what are the normal responsibilities as a councilman? What do you?
Well, yeah, I mean, you have a great deal of responsibility. Obviously, the day-to-day operations of the town are managed by the town supervisor, who is Kate Murray, and she's the 3rd town supervisor that I've served with, starting with Greg Peterson, and then Rich Guardino, and now Kate Murray for the past 11 years. But the day-to-day management of the town is their supervisor's responsibility. The town board is the legislative body of the town government. So we have to vote on the budget. We vote on the all the different resolutions and zoning changes and things of that nature. Probably the two big, and because we have a Republican majority on the legislature, and I'm the senior Republican, so I am the head of the legislature for the town of Hempstead. The two most important responsibilities, as I see it, obviously, are the budget, voting on the budget, because that obviously impacts tax rates and taxation and things of that nature, which is obviously a major concern here on Long Island, and we work very, very hard to keep costs down and to keep taxes down. So that aspect of it, the budget, development of the budget, passage of the budget, and tax policy and things of that nature, that's probably the most important thing that falls under the town board's jurisdiction. The second area of responsibility that is critically important is zoning. The zoning aspect of it is probably the single most, right after the budgetary aspects of it, that's the single most important the second most important responsibility.
Right. So all these years, like, you've been there for a long time, and is there anything like you? I mean, I'm sure you must have initiated a lot of different things for good for the community.
Sure.
Right? So can you give us like what do you think the most successful?
Well, and both of them are. I could think of two that immediately come to mind.
Right.
That are. I know actually I could think of three, which are one is more global, and I'll talk about that.
Right.
When we had the whole controversy about the plan to rebuild the area around the Coliseum, the so-called Lighthouse project.
Right.
Which was, in my personal view, and was a view shared by actually the entire town board to one degree or another. It was the original proposal was entirely too dense. It was going to basically build right smack in the middle of Hempstead Turnpike. It was going to build a mini city. It was like taking the Upper West Side of Manhattan and dropping it into Hempstead Turnpike. And those roads now, if you've ever traveled at 5 o'clock or at 9 o'clock on Hempstead Turnpike or the Meadowbrook Parkway or the Northern State Parkway, those roads are overburdened as it is. Put that denser development in that finite an area without any real plan to upgrade the infrastructure and the roads and all the rest of that would have, in my view, forever changed the character of the community of the town of Hempstead. And there was a great deal of pressure, because there was a great deal of money behind that project, and a great deal of pressure was put on Supervisor Murray and the town board to approve it. And we stood our ground and said, we were willing to consider a downsized proposal. And when the developer said, no, this is it, take it or leave it, that was basically the end of the discussion. And now I think we have there, thanks to what County Executive Ed Mangano has been able to do, we have a proposal that's going forward there at the Coliseum that does fit the community. It'll be a first-class entertainment center. It'll encompass a whole mix of usages that are going to be a destination for people to come, but it's not going to overtax the infrastructure of the town. So that effort, that whole process of making sure that we stood our ground with respect to defending the suburban character of Hempstead was, I think, probably in my 20 years, probably the best piece of work that we've done in the town, because we're going to get something now that works for the community as opposed to something that would have just placed an inordinate strain on the community and really would have changed the character of Hempstead for, I think, forevermore. The two other things that are a little more parochial in character that I'm very proud of. The first one is there was actually there was a situation that existed throughout the township. It existed in an area where I represent specifically, and that's what I sought to address. But because we addressed it, it really has had an impact around the state. There were areas that were not areas of communities that were not automatically covered by a library. Meaning, if you lived there were certain pockets of communities where if you lived there, you were not a member. You couldn't go to your local library and take out a book because you weren't. Because libraries are governed basically two ways in the town of Hempstead. One was by a village. Many villages run their own library. And the second way is school districts run a library. They run the public library system. Or there are school districts. There are library district boards that are coterminous with school districts. But there are certain areas that don't fall into either one. They are not in a village, and they are not covered by a school district library system. So those people could not be a member of a library. They could buy a library card and have limited usage, but they were not automatically, based on their residency, able to use a library. So we saw that, and I worked with the area that was of particular concern to me was a place called Bay Park, which is right adjacent to the village that I live in, East Rockaway, and that fit into that category because the East Rockaway School District does, which covers Bay Park, does not run a library.
Right.
And the village of East Rockaway runs a library, but those people were not residents of the village of East Rockaway, so they couldn't be a part of the library system. And this is actually something that as I was growing up, I had a friend of mine who lived in this community, Bay Park. We went to the same high school. I could go to the library because I lived in the village, and he couldn't.
He couldn't go.
Because he
Right.
didn't live in the village.
Right.
So I worked with Assemblyman Harvey Wiesenberg and Senator Dean Skelos to create a law where townships could create library districts and then tax the folks, impose a tax on the folks in that area, and then the town contracts with an adjacent library to provide those people with an automatic right to be a member of a library. And again, I did it to address the discrepancy that I saw in Bay Park, but that law then became a model, and it's been used it's been used in Limbrook, it's been used up in the Elmont area. It's been used actually throughout the state now to create library districts, so that now, because of that, everybody who lives anywhere in the state of New York should be able to be covered by a library, because of the law that I worked with Assemblyman Wiesenberg and Senator Skelos to pass to allow townships to step in and create library districts, which was not the law before. We couldn't do it. So that was number one. And a second thing that I'm very, very proud of is that there was a motel in the community of Oceanside that I represent that had a bit of a checkered past. It was not a very nice place, and it was a place where there was actually, when I was in college, there was a murder, and they found the body under a bed. I mean, it was one of these real decrepit, rundown places where a lot of the people engaged in drug activity lived and congregated, and it was a real eyesore for the community. And for years and years and years, people were somehow trying to get rid of this motel, and no one was doing anything. So I stepped up and I worked with then it was Supervisor Guardino, and we went in there and we condemned the motel, and we bought it. The town bought it and created a parking lot. And the funny thing is, people said to me, why? Because there was very little business in the area, because the motel kind of kept. No one wanted to open a business around it because it was a very seedy area. And when we bought the property and knocked it down to build the parking lot, a lot of people in the community said, "Why are you doing that? There's no business here. Why are you building a parking lot?" But the funny thing is, we built the parking lot, and once we got rid of the motel, all businesses sprang up all around it.
Right.
We have a beautiful Wild by Nature store across the street. We have a bank across the street. We have a thriving restaurant right next door. A diner on the other side. Now that parking lot is filled every day.
Wow.
Because the parking lot, getting rid of the motel, was the thing that then created the businesses, and now those businesses are feeding people into the parking lot. So
everybody's happy now.
Kind of a happy outcome.
Everybody's happy now, right?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot more along the way, but those
right.
are the things I think I'll always be the proudest of, because there were things that people said couldn't get done, and I found a way to get them done.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Yeah. Now in Coliseum, right? The Coliseum project.
Yeah.
Originally, it was Charles Wang, right? He was the one who was kind of taxpayer money and all that. So now county is here and the town is here. The town is the one who really, Hempstead town is the one who authorizes everything.
No, the county runs the project. It's county property.
It's a county property.
But the town controls the zoning.
Oh, okay. So zoning, that is why it has to go through town.
It has to come across to the town because the town controls the zoning. Which is why when the original project, which had the 38-story skyscrapers and all the other, there were many other high-rise buildings that were planned for it. The reason it had to come before the town was because of the zoning.
Right.
And we looked at that and we said clearly this was just too much. I mean, it's the old saying of trying to take 10 pounds of bologna and put it in a 5-pound bag. I mean, that's what it was. It was just way too much for the area, way too much for the infrastructure, the roadways, the sewer system, the water delivery system. There was questions as to whether or not the local fire departments were equipped with handling a fire on how does a local fire department handle a fire on the 38th floor of a high-rise building? I mean, there were a lot of questions.
We are going to talk about now your different hat.
Sure.
Republican Party, Chairman, Vice Chairman. First, I want to congratulate you for the wonderful, the big success of 2013 election in the Nassau County. Republican Party not only took the majority or retained majority in the legislature, as well as they got big, win against the county exec. Okay. What is your thought about how did that happen? I mean,
Well, I think it's the old adage that good government's good politics, and I think again with Chairman Mandello keeping the organization strong and united, and it takes a strong leader to do that, because a lot of times in politics, different elected officials have have different thoughts, and maybe their egos, and they all want to go off in different directions. You need a good leader who keeps everybody focused on moving in one direction, and Chairman Mandello has been doing that for 31 years now as the chairman of the Nassau County Republican Committee, and he's done a wonderful job doing that, and he continues to do that to this day. He's the glue that holds everything together. So that being said, a strong organization focused on everybody going in the same direction,
right.
Which, parenthetically, and I'm not being partisan, but the Democrats tend to not do that. The Democrats tend to go this way, that way. There's an old saying, it's a funny one, it goes way back to, I think, the 1920s or 30s. A fellow by the name of Will Rogers, who was sort of like the Jay Leno or the David Letterman of that day, used to say, he says, I'm not a member of any organized party, I'm a Democrat. And that kind of at least holds true today, I think, at least in Nassau County, where they tend to go off in a lot of different directions as opposed to being united and focused. And Chairman Mandello certainly gets all the credit for doing that. So that being said, and then the other part of it is, again, going back to the old adage that good government is good politics. And I think when you look at County Executive Ed Mangano and the Republicans on the county legislature, the majority led by Norma Gonzalez, they made a pledge 4 years ago in 2009. They made a pledge to finally do something about runaway property taxes in Nassau County on the county level, which the Democrats had raised, which the Democrats imposed a home energy tax. So every time you flipped on your light switch, you were paying a tax to Nassau County. Anytime your oil burner or your gas heat kicked on, you were paying a tax. And people finally had enough, and they understood that it was time to put the brakes on taxes, and the only way you could do that would be to put the brakes on spending, because the two things it's a direct corollary between what you spend and what you have to tax to fund the spending. So County Executive Mangano and the Republicans on the legislature made some pretty hard decisions over 4 years, and they were criticized every step of the way by the Democrats and by Newsday, which is essentially a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party in Nassau County, and everything every initiative that Mangano and the Republicans on the legislature tried to move forward to cut spending, they were criticized for. But they did it. They persevered, and they really did clamp down on spending, and they were able to deliver 4 consecutive budgets with no property tax increase.
Right.
And that resounded pretty well with the electorate. And then the Democrats nominated former County Executive Swazi, who had lost the election to Mangano in 2009. And he really didn't, in my view, offer a vision. What was going to be. I kept telling people, what did you like so much about his first 8 years that you want 4 more of it? And nobody really could give me an answer, because it really was he spent so much time in his 8 years running for governor or running for this job or running for that job, that it really wasn't, he really didn't focus his full attention on Nassau County, and it showed. And people just, I think it was a combination of the election results were a combination of those 3 things. The great job that Chairman Mandello did keeping the party together and focused, the excellent job politically, governmentally, that Mangano and the Republicans on the legislature did, fulfilling their promise to hold the line on taxes. And then essentially the fact that the Democrats nominated a candidate that wasn't a fresh face, wasn't somebody with some new vision or some new ideas. It was just warmed over policies from the prior 8 years, and people just didn't want any more of that. So I think those 3 things together went forward and produced a historic victory.
Not many people expected a big margin like this.
Well, the polls that we had, Republican Party polls showed that Mangano was going to win comfortably.
Win,
Not
right,
quite, not
definitely.
quite that number.
Right,
And
exactly.
basically, our post-election analysis shows that a lot of
Right.
Democrats stayed home. A lot of Democrats just were not enthused about their candidate, and they didn't turn out on election day. But to Ed Mangano's credit, he got a great deal of support from independents, from groups that are not traditionally Republicans. He got a great deal of support in the Hispanic community. He got a great deal of support. Actually, he got significant support in the African American community, which is normally not
Right.
not a. I mean, he didn't win there, but he got a healthy amount of support there, and that's obviously a constituency that's not traditionally Republican. So, and that again, coupled with Democratic turnout, was suppressed. They were not enthusiastic about their candidate. As I said before, it was people really they didn't give a rationale. The Democrats didn't give a rationale why would you turn the county back to what was that had already been repudiated in 2009. I still think Mangano would have won, but I think the Democrats would have done a lot better had they nominated
somebody else, somebody new, right? Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think I mean, Mangano, he was the first person of inaugural show here with me, and he's a very likable person.
He's a great guy.
He's a very good person,
and he's very hardworking, and his heart is always in the right place.
Exactly. I mean,
and he was still able to by being very innovative. I mean, he privatized the county bus system,
right.
And while there's been, there's always some problems, there's always some glitches here and there. That's worked fairly well,
right.
And people who need the bus service are getting it delivered, and it's not costing the taxpayers the millions of dollars that it was in the past. So that was new and that was innovative. And again, there was a lot of criticism. There was a lot of people who said it couldn't be done, but he rolled up his sleeves and he did it. And that's just one example. There's many, many more. He's now attempting something very similar with the county sewer system.
Right.
Again, a mandated service. The
Right.
county has to do those things.
Right.
The services that are not mandated at the county level, parks and things of that nature, they're minimal. They're very, very small. So it's very hard to find ways to cut costs. You have to be innovative. You have to think outside the box.
Right.
When you're dealing with services that by law you have to deliver.
Right.
And as I said, Ed Mangano has done that, and he works. I see him all the time, and he works 7 days a week at it.
One thing, the best thing I like about him, he doesn't have ego.
No, not at all.
That is the best thing I like about him. He's a very simple person. I mean, you when he's there somewhere, you don't even feel like
Right.
he's got break ego.
And I think the other thing, and I think that people get, is that he wants to be county executive. It's
Right.
not like he said, well, I want to be governor, I want to be U.S. senator.
Yeah. He wants to be
He
there.
wants to be the county
He wants to be there, and he wants to serve people.
I think people see that,
Yep.
and I think they respond to it.
Yep. No, I go to many events and he's there, and I mean, it's unbelievable. He's simple person, no ego.
Yeah.
You can approach him
He's got a great
anytime.
family. His wife Linda's
Yep.
a lovely lady. He's
Right.
got a couple of great kids.
Right.
He's a real good guy.
Right. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Let me talk to you about the, like you are the vice chairman of the Republican Party.
I'm I'm executive assistant to the chairman.
Oh, executive assistant to the chairman.
Right.
Okay. So you are kind of the person who does everything.
Well, I'm his day-to-day manager.
Day-to-day manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, you earned his trust.
Oh, absolutely.
For 30 years.
We've been together for over 30 years.
30 years,
Certainly.
right? Yeah.
You don't work together that long for somebody without that happening.
Okay. So you have a lot of say in picking the candidate who runs for the.
I participate in a lot of the discussions and things of that nature.
Okay. All right. So how do you pick a candidate? What do you see in a candidate? Let's say someone wants to run for something.
Well, I think the first thing you have to look at is, will the person be, is the person honest? Does he have integrity? Does he or she have integrity? Would the person do a good job? Because as for whatever they want to run for, and that may sound, basic and fundamental, but that's the first thing you have to consider. Are they honest? Do they have integrity? Are they really dedicated to doing the job should they get elected? And will they represent your party well? Will they bring credit to the party? Because you don't want to elect somebody who then becomes an embarrassment. So
Right.
that's the first thing you look at.
Right.
Then the second consideration is, can they win? Because obviously if you don't win in politics, there's not much, there's no second place.
Yep,
It's
yep.
win or nothing.
You can't do anything.
So you have to look to see who is a person who can win, who has the right contacts in the community, who's been active in the community, who's known in the community, someone who can garner the support in the community. So you look at that. You look at that secondarily, and then you start to look at things like, can they raise money? Can
Right,
they,
right.
what kind of time can they devote to the campaign? I mean, somebody may be the best person in the world, but if they're involved in a business and they have to work 12 hours or 14 hours a day in their business, they're not going to have time to campaign. So it has to be somebody who has the time and the freedom to go out there and campaign, because that's what it takes today. People they want to see you have to knock on doors and shake hands, and people want to be able to talk and interface with the people that are running for office, and that creates a great deal of time pressures. So you look at all of those things.
You look at, okay, so if someone wants to run for something, I mean, they have to approach the party.
Well, really, the best way.
How do you do
the
that?
best way to do it, the way I have always told people throughout,
Right.
and a mistake a lot of people make is they want to start right at the top. They come from nowhere, no one's ever heard of them, and they want to be a U.S. congressman.
Ah.
The way to do it is you get involved in your local area, your local Republican club. If you're a Republican, I can only speak
Right.
from that particular side. And in each area, we have Republican clubs. And,
Right.
we have 70 some odd Republican clubs across Nassau County. So, and if you call anybody who was interested, call the Republican headquarters in Westbury, which is 516-334-5800. If you don't know, what club your community is in,
Right.
we'll tell you.
Right.
And we'll tell you when the meetings are, and you go and you get active, get involved. We're always looking for a few good men and women who want to, be a part of things, and work your way up through the chairs. I mean, that's the way it works. You spend some time being involved in the club and being involved in the community. You want to join your local Kiwanis Club, or the Masons, or the Knights of Columbus, or the Sons of Italy, or the Hibernians, whatever the case may be. Get involved in your community. Get
Right.
involved in your local Republican club.
Right.
Spend some time listening and learning to see what's on people's minds and what's going on. And then from there, then you approach your local Republican leader and say, I'd like to be recommended for this position or that position. The mistake a lot of people make sometimes is they just come in and say, well, here I am. I've always wanted to be a congressman. Make me a congressman.
I think that's the best way to do it, because this is where, you have done the same way anyway. And that's the right way to do, because that's how you learn everything, how
Sure.
how it works.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right, yeah. Now, let me ask you about this election this year, right? About the Bruce Blackman versus Kathleen Rice.
Yep.
So, Bruce was a Nassau County legislator before,
Yep.
and now he's running again as a congressman.
Right.
So, right now it looks like the district is 50-50,
About
50-50.
Yeah, there are slightly more registered Democrats than Republicans in it, but the district, in terms of voting patterns, behaves slightly more Republican than Democrat. It's basically a toss-up.
It's a toss-up, right? So what will it take for Bruce to win?
Well, I think a lot of it is going to hinge upon what's happening in Washington. I think a lot of it's going to revolve around whether or not people support President Obama's agenda and want to reaffirm that for another 2 years, or whether they want to go in another direction. Because I think a lot of what's happening, obviously in the economy, which is still fits and starts and struggling along, and obviously Obamacare is going to be a big issue. How that is going to impact people. We just saw in the paper today that New York insurers, as part of the Obama healthcare plan, that many people are looking at double-digit increases in their premiums.
Oh yeah, we have got notices.
Yeah. So I think those are going to be issues that are going to drive how people vote when it comes to Congress. I think also a lot of what's going on in the world. It is a lot of what's happening in terms of in the Middle East and things of that nature. I think are a cause for great concern, and I think President Obama's leadership has really been lackluster. I think a lot of people see that, and I think a lot of what happens in their votes for Congress this year are going to depend upon whether or not they want to go in a new direction, or they want to stay where they've, stay with the policies of the last 6 years, or whether they want to go in a new direction. And I think that's what's going to govern a lot of what happens around the country in these congressional races. I think this is going to be a year where a lot of people are going to be very surprised when election day is come and gone. They're going to look at a lot of people who are going to win, who a lot of people didn't expect to win.
What about the governor's race? This year is a governor's race.
Well, I mean, Rob Astorino is our candidate, the Republican candidate, Westchester County executive, a great guy who's done a great job in Westchester. He's working very, very hard. He is all over the place. New York is a very blue state.
Yes.
But you have to learn in this business that you never say never, and you never know what's going to happen. I mean, no one ever thought that George Pataki in 1994 was going to beat Mario Cuomo. George Pataki was a little-known, one-term New York State senator, and in 1994 was just one of those years, because remember, that was the year in '94 where Republicans took over the House of Representatives. It was that whole when Newt Gingrich led the the Republican Revolution, and it was just one of those years where Republicans swept the country. There was dissatisfaction over Bill and Hillary Clinton's health care proposal. Very similar sets of circumstances to now. So you never know. I mean, certainly, realistically, Cuomo has to be a favorite in the race, because just the New York is just so heavily Democratic and such a blue state. But again, as I said before, I think this is going to be one of these years. On Wednesday morning after Election Day, as you look at the results, you're going to see a lot of surprises out there.
Also, the funding, right? Governor Cuomo is.
Yeah, look. Obviously, the ability to raise money is important in politics, and when you have a $30-something million war chest like the governor has, that's pretty formidable, because you can be out there on the on the tube every day with commercials touting your record or attacking your opponent, and when you're going to be outfunded, I'm sure Astorino will be outfunded significantly, as we go forward. And realistically, the governor, as the governor of the state of New York, has the ability to essentially raise whatever he needs to raise in order to run. So obviously that'll be an uphill hurdle, but money doesn't mean everything. Sometimes it's the message
you have to get out.
Yeah,
that's what.
And again, a lot of times it's just the mood of the electorate.
Right.
And I think in 2014 the electorate has had enough of Obama. They've had enough of what's going on in Washington, and they're going to be looking for a change. So we'll see.
Yeah, Rob Astorino he came here on our show already, right? Yeah. So now let me talk about the Indian community. I mean, you've been involved with Indian community
long time,
and we love you. What is your opinion on our community, and how do you think we can improve upon? What do we need to do now?
Well, I think the Indian American community makes a tremendous contribution to Nassau County, the town of Hempstead. These are very well-educated, hard-working people, entrepreneurial people with wonderful values and believe in strong families, and believe in hard work, and believe in community. And I think they have already made, and each day continue to make our community, they enrich our community and make our community a better place to live, because the best thing, I think, is what I see is the willingness, not even the willingness, they're very anxious to embrace the traditions of America, their adopted country, but to preserve the culture and the traditions of their homeland, and they meld those two things together. And I always like to say it's the world's oldest democracy with the world's largest democracy, and that's what you have when you talk about the United States and India, the oldest democracy and the largest democracy. Right. And and particularly in the next generation that I'm now starting to see of Indian Americans who were born here, whose parents may have been the ones who came here, but the younger generation who came here, who are born here, they're still very, very attuned to and very, very anxious to learn and to be immersed in the culture of India, and I see that attending so many different cultural programs and schools and things of that nature. So I think that it's a wonderful, wonderful addition to our community.
Well, thank you so much for your kind words, number one. And I just want to ask you one question. You know, like in our community, we are all very well individually, meaning, you know, individual family, we have got, you know, great, and we got good relations with each other and everything. But, you know, now what should be our next step now? You know, like we are all happy, and I'm, you know, everybody's happy. I mean, you know, most of the people are happy. I mean, they are earning good money and they are having good family.
Well, I think the next step should be get involved in politics. I'd like to see more Indian Americans and South Asians involved in the political process. And I think and it is the system here in this country. So I think it's the way it needs to be done if you're going to make an impact. The one thing I've seen from the Indian American community is the tendency to be involved with individual elected officials, regardless of party. Because I've seen people who have been very active with former county executive Galata, who then became active with County Executive Swazi, who are now active with County Executive Mangano, and that's fine. But I think the way to really make an impact is through the party system, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. You know, I mean, I certainly hope that the vast majority want to become Republicans, because we represent the party of entrepreneurship, of risk takers, of economic growth, and that do-it-yourself spirit that I think built this country. So I think Indian Americans should be very, very attuned to the Republican Party. But if your own personal politics is different, but get involved in the political system, whether it's Republican or Democrat. Work your way through, as I said before, when you asked me about people running for office, work your way through the political chairs, get involved, get active, because it would be great to have Indian Americans elected as councilmen or assemblymen or town clerks or things of that nature. And the only way that's going to happen is through the political system.
So your advice is to stick to one line, one party, and, you know, don't keep jumping.
Decide which one you want.
Decide which one you want and just go for it. Work from bottom and go up to top.
Exactly right.
And that's your advice for the young Indian Americans.
Decide what you want to be.
Yeah, and just go for it.
Learn the issues, figure it out for yourself,
right,
and then pick a cause and stick with it.
So Republican Party will be open to accept Indian American candidate.
We are the big tent. We want anybody who believes in this country, who believes in free enterprise, who believes in who believes in a good honest day's work for honest day's pay. That's our philosophy. Good. Freedom, entrepreneurship, people who are the risk takers, who want to build businesses and create jobs. That's what the Republican Party is all about.
Love it.
Yeah.
Lately, we just had an election in India, the historic election in India,
BJP,
and 541 million people voted out of 840 million, the eligible voters. Right. And the party who came in, BJP won the majority in everywhere, just based on economic development.
Yeah. No coalition.
No coalition. They won clear majority, and they won based on the economic development and good governance, basically. Yeah. In a similar principle, what you just said.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Good government is always good politics. If you do a good job, people will respond to that.
Right.
And if you don't do a good job, they'll see through it.
Yeah. So we are really hoping for the Modi government to deliver, and I'm sure they will. I mean, he's a very visionary person. I mean, he did great in Gujarat, my state.
Yes.
And I'm sure he will do it good over there in the country level.
Very good.
What is Tony in 5 years? What do you want to be, Tony?
Well, we'll see. The other thing I learned in politics is you never you never know what's going to happen. You take you take things as they come. I'm very happy. I'm very happy being a town councilman. I had the opportunity to run for Congress this year. I did not decide to do that because I like what I do on the local level, and I think I make a pretty good impact on the town of Hempstead, and I want to continue to do that in whatever capacity I can in the years ahead.
That's it.
So far.
So, okay, that's a diplomatic answer. Okay, so what is your final message to the community now?
Well, I think my final message is to the community is take the time to really learn and understand the issues. Don't just rely on the quick little sound bites on the evening news. Don't believe everything you read in Newsday or in any of the other papers. Read a lot of papers. Read a lot of magazines. Go on the internet. Find the time. Spend a little time every day knowing about what's going on in this world, our country, and our community. One of the things that it's funny, but it actually upsets me, is some of these comedians do these, they do these different things where they go out and they go out in the public and they ask people, well, who's the vice president of the United States? And people don't know. Or they ask very basic questions about government, and people have no clue. I mean, they'll know who, they'll know what Kim Kardashian did that day, but they won't know that Joe Biden is the vice president of the United States. And that's really sad, because democracy is a privilege. It's a privilege that a lot of people around the world die trying to get, and we have it here handed to us on a silver platter. And democracy it requires some level of work on behalf from the people to go out there and learn and to know what's going on. I'm not saying you need to, spend 5 hours a day on it, but you at least need to pay enough attention that you can cut through the political nonsense that a lot of candidates try to sell and understand what the real truth of things are. And that requires just a little effort. And that's my message. It would be to get out there and don't just rely on sound bites. Do a little due diligence and try to learn as much about your government as you may know about the housewives of New Jersey.
Very good piece of advice, Tony. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And you heard about from the guru here. So let's follow this advice and let's go for it, because that's the next step that we need to really do for our community. As I said, individually we are all very successful and very happy. We need to reach the next level, and next level could be achieved by getting involved in a political process of United States. Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, you can email me at rajmitv@gmail.com. That's again rajmitv@gmail.com. You can watch our prior shows on YouTube at youtube.com/Infosys International. Again, that's youtube.com/Infosys International. Until next time, have a great week.
All right, thank you very much. All the best.